slow pace on this end, and you got super, gunplay, action, zombies coming out of every orifice on this end, like the Left 4 Dead or something. We're definitely, I'd say, like 2/3 over the scale, much closer to the story-driven. This is absolutely a story-driven Silent Hill. It's, we've said this time and time again in the press, but it is true. We definitely looked at Silent Hill 2 as basically for our inspiration, sort of the guiding light for our creative direction. So I'd say the pace is definitely much closer to those early Silent Hill games than it is to something like Homecoming. Murphy, he's not a fighter. He's in prison, but I definitely wouldn't say that Murphy's like the stereotypical prisoner. He's not the prison badass that kicks everybody's ass on the cell block. He's like if any one of us, maybe not Devin, but he's like any of the rest of us who went to prison. We're reacting exactly like him. He gets scared, he's terrified, he panics, he's clumsy, and you'll see that coming through in the fighting. So, you can grab a chair, you can grab a bottle, you can grab a crowbar is probably like one of our more lethal weapons. But he's not fighting like a ninja. He's not going to pull any solid snake stuff. He's just a guy who's trapped in this extraordinarily horrific situation. I'd say on the story versus like the combat, I think it's safe to say that we spent more time working with our writer Tom Waltz and myself and Devin and Tom Hewlett. We spent more time working on the story and the character development than we did on the combat. Not to say that the combat's not fully fleshed out, but it's not the core of this game. The core is definitely the story, putting together a multiple layered story, and I think it's a story that players are going to want to go back and they're going to replay it and they're going to want to see what they missed the first time, because we took inspiration from things like Memento, The Usual Suspects, these movies where even when you get to the end you want to immediately go back and watch it again because you know you missed something. That's basically the feel that we went for with Silent Hill.
So much to the dismay of a lot of fans, Akira Yamaoka is now returning to score the music for Silent Hill Downpour. Can you talk a little bit about that, the decision to go with TV composer Daniel Rich and what he brings to the project?
Yeah, so, obviously when Akira left Konami, it was a surprise to us, it was a shock to us, but, we had to kind of roll with the punches on that one. So, we had been in talks with Akira at the beginning, very early on in pre-production, but we hadn't gone down a road that was too far to make any, drastic changes or anything. So, when he made his announcement, we moved on, and, we didn't look back. And so, quite a few of the team members, and myself included, were huge fans of Dexter. So when we were compiling our short list of replacements for Akira, Dan Lick was at the very top. So, we had him at number one and then everyone else. And, we went to Dan. He was super fired up. He had actually been really eager to get into the game space. So he was excited. He had known about Silent Hill as well. He's not a super diehard gamer or anything, but he had heard of Silent Hill. It just kind of goes to show that the weight that this franchise carries. So, he was fired up. We were fired up, and it was a perfect fit, really. And the guy plays a mean mandolin. So what else do you want? It's perfect.
So Silent Hill is recognized as a psychological thriller, a game that toys with its audience and takes them down a very twisted and visceral path. What are some of the ways that your team maintains this intense direction? And since you're creating a brand new installment, where do you look for inspiration?
Well, first of all, I'd say a lot of the inspiration came from the surroundings themselves. Brno is, as I said earlier, it's a creepy place, period. Just to give you a few examples, directly across the street from Vatra's office, there's a massive cemetery. So, literally where the guys get dropped off on the tram to go to work, they're riding the tram every morning with mourners bringing flowers to the graves of their loved ones. And if you miss our stop and you go one stop too far, it actually takes you to the crematorium. So Vatra's kind of surrounded by death already. This is our physical location. There's literally a weekly air raid siren. If you remember the air raid siren from Silent Hill, the siren goes off every week. It's the scariest damn thing you've ever heard. It makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck because they think that the boss is coming to attack or something. So the area sirens going off. I mean, these guys are immersed in a pretty creepy place. And then there's the weather. I mean, maybe it's just coincidence, or maybe it's life imitating art, or vice versa. But that region of Europe is prone to flash flooding, really freak thunderstorms. I've seen some incredible storms where we go out at lunch and it's bright blue sunshine, and by the time we get back and half an hour later, we're soaked to the bone because just these crazy freak storms come out of nowhere. So I think honestly, whether it was conscious or subconscious, quite a bit of the terrain of southern Moravia has crept its way into Silent Hill. Besides that, just on a personal level, as far as the personnel of our team, I say every one of us, down to the last man, is a horror connoisseur. They're all into horror movies, horror fiction. They're all very well read. They know horror literature. They're into horror comics. If you look at our game library, we've got every single survival horror game that's ever been made, all the way back to the beginning. And the team's played them all. So looking for inspiration, we just have to go over to our game shelf and just kind of pick out our favorites and show each other stuff that we like. And then also we just try to make ourselves uncomfortable with the game. We try to hit the emotional buttons in creating quests and stuff that made us uncomfortable or made us scared or afraid to stay in the office too late. Anytime we got any of those kind of feelings, we knew we were on the right track.
So most of the enemies in the previous Silent Hill games have been physical representations of character flaws people struggle against. Could you tell us about any of the enemies in Downpour and what concepts they will represent?
Yeah, so it's a great question, but it's one that I can't really get too deep into without giving away too much. Obviously, we've thought out all of our monsters. We have a design Bible that we created very early on in production that describes all the different ties that they have to Murphy's backstory and the darkness inside Murphy. But I'll give you one example. In the trailer, actually, it's not in the demo that you've seen, but in the trailer, there's these creatures that we refer to internally as weeping bats. They're these big, tall, lanky-looking bat-like creatures, and basically, those are sort of these. They're very large, but they walk around as if they're in this very tight, cramped space. So they're very hunched over and kind of lanky and walking around very low. But those are sort of manifestations of what you would expect from somebody who's spent a long period of time in solitary confinement. So that's just one example of the ties that our monsters have.
So what is it that you believe sets the Silent Hill games apart from other games, even other survival horror games? And what kind of challenges did you face in recreating those key elements?
Well, I think one thing that Silent Hill's got that not besides other horror games, but just other survival horror games, is it's a game about subtlety. It's a game that's not afraid to take its time, let the atmosphere coalesce sort of naturally, let it creep up on the player. But the early Silent Hill games, you'd spend half an hour wandering around the town in the fog, and it was still creepy as hell. But I think that was sort of one of the challenges for us as professional game developers, because we've sort of been conditioned by other publishers and past projects to sort of hit the player with everything that you've got within the first 5 to 10 minutes of the gameplay. That's kind of the typical approach to mainstream game development. Just hit it with everything immediately before they put the controller down. And that's never been Silent Hill's way. It's a game that's totally confident in its story, totally confident in its characters and the atmosphere it's building. So it allows itself that pace and just the breathing room to just build that atmosphere up. So I'd say that was sort of like the biggest challenge, was just sort of unlearning those habits that mainstream gaming and mainstream game development taught us, and to just enjoy it and immerse ourselves in that atmosphere like a warm, creepy bath, and just let it wash over us.
So I think that's it. Unless you guys have any more questions, we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for coming out. Feel free to play the demo we've got out here, as well as at the Konami booth. Drop on by and check it out. Also, we have the E3 trailer on our Facebook site, so please go to facebook.com/Silent Hill and check it out. Thanks, everyone.